today's episode of Heard and Seen Around. I am Rajesh Karipurat. This is my take on macroeconomic and geoeconomic data points, which I find interesting. I hope you enjoy watching it as much as I enjoyed curating it. Cheers.
They don't have any debt except for a mortgage and student loans. Okay, and I'm vegan except for bacon-wrapped steak. Earnings were positive before one-time charges. This is Wall Street's equivalent of, other than that Mrs. Lincoln, how was the play? Earnings missed estimates. No, earnings don't miss estimates, estimates miss earnings. No one ever says, the weather missed estimates. They blame the weatherman for getting it wrong. Finance is the only industry where people blame the poor forecasting skills on reality. Earnings met expectations, but analysts were looking for a beat. If you're expecting earnings to beat expectations, you don't know what the word expectations means. It's a Ponzi scheme, The number of things called Ponzi schemes that are actually Ponzi schemes rounds to zero. It's become a synonym for thing I disagree with.
If you ever doubted China's love for long-term planning, here's Exhibit A. During its 14 5-year plan, 2021 to 25, China's economy added enough output to basically create another mid-sized country. GDP rose from 103.5 trillion yuan in 2020 to nearly $135 trillion yuan in 2024. Per capita GDP also climbed to $13,445 and merchandise trade surged past 43 trillion yuan. Proof that factory of the world is still a full-time job. Manufacturing output also hits record highs, even as the economy shifts towards tech and green energy. The Tata Group's latest numbers tell a fascinating story of how India's oldest conglomerate reinvented itself without losing its roots. By FY25, Tata Motors, TCS and Tata Steel remained the revenue heavyweights, but look who's joining the party. Air India, Tata Electronics and Tata Digital. That's old economy meets new frontiers, autos and airlines alongside semiconductors and e-commerce. In just 5 years, the group's revenues nearly doubled, profits tripled, and market value soared from 9 trillion rupees to 28 trillion rupees. Here's a quick reminder for anyone betting on oil spikes after every new round of sanctions. History says otherwise. Since the G7's first talk of a price cap in mid-2022, Brent oil has done the opposite of what the panic headlines predicted. Even after multiple OPEC plus production cuts, prices have drifted lower and not higher. When the US rolled out its so-called shadow-free sanctions earlier this year, traders barely blinked. Why? Because markets have already priced in geopolitics, and Russia's oil is still finding its way to buyers, just via longer routes and darker tankers. Here's one chart that quietly destroys 1,000 internet arguments. New research shows Indian immigrants make the largest fiscal contribution of any major group, saving their host country's government $1.7 million per person over 30 years. That's not just good, that's elite. It means Indian immigrants and their descendants pay far more in taxes than they ever take in benefits, outperforming groups from China, the Philippines, Colombia, and Venezuela. So yes, while social media argues about brain drain, the data shows India exported competence, education, and ambition, and not freeloaders. India's skies have never been busier. Domestic air traffic is now 20% higher than pre-COVID, driven by rising incomes, a digital-first middle class, and a nation that's finally swapping sleeper trains for red-eye flights. Yet only 8.7% of Indians even hold passports, which means that the runway for growth is massive. With the Udan scheme, record airport investments, and over 1,000 aircrafts on order, India isn't just flying anymore. It's building the infra to stay airborne. Add e-commerce, cargo, and a 35 million strong diaspora, and you've got the makings of the next global aviation hub. Advanced economies are living on borrowed dimes and running out of pockets. Gross public debt now stands over 110% of GDP, the highest in over 2 centuries. The last time debt levels looked this high, Napoleon was still marching across Europe, and central banks were literally made of gold. This time, the culprits are less romantic. Pandemic spending, social programs, and the irresistible urge to stimulate without savings. The IMF says the ratio could stay stubbornly high because, unlike Napoleon, modern governments never retreat, they just refinance. Despite all the climate pledges, summits, selfies, and solar slogans, coal still rules the global power grid. In 2024, it accounted for 35% of the world's electricity, more than all the renewables combined, unless you lump together solar, wind, hydro, wood, and maybe a few good intentions. Natural gas followed with 22%, hydropower is at 14%, and nuclear is steady at 9%. Solar and wind together, just 15%. Impressive growth, yes, but still playing catch up to a 19th century fuel source. India pulled in $3.8 billion in FDI for August, bringing the 12-month total to $56.5 billion, a 2% rise year on year. Now, that's not a jaw dropping surge, but in a world where capital is getting choosy and cautious, a steady climb is no small feat. It shows global investors still like the India story, even if they're not exactly writing love letters. The resilience is telling. Supply chain diversification, manufacturing bets, and digital infrastructure are doing the quite heavy lifting.